I think we can start. Welcome, everyone. It's a very difficult time for all of us, especially those who are Palestinian and have families under genocide. But we thought that it's very important, actually, to acknowledge that reality and to start our very first episode of what we want to make it an educational series, which is Witnessing Genocide in Palestine film series. I have my colleagues here to help, especially Dr. David Yagobian, but we would like to start by acknowledging that we are all congregating on indigenous, unceded, colonized lands. And since we don't believe that this kind of acknowledgement should be only lip service and that it should be an action, a verb, we encourage you all to acknowledge the lands you are on. And I will start by my own acknowledgement that I'm joining you all from the unceded, colonized, indigenous lands of the Komiai First Nations in San Diego, and that our own campus, CSUSB, sits and benefits and to keeps on benefiting from the colonization of the unceded indigenous land of the Ohavitam First Nations in San Bernardino. With that acknowledgement, I would like to now introduce my colleague, Professor or Dr. David Yagobian, who is a professor of history at Cal State San Bernardino, who will be leading, first introduce our very first film and also leading the discussion afterwards. And please just remember to put your questions in the Q&A feature in the webinar today. Thank you very much, Dr. Yagobian.
Thank you. I just wanted to provide a few words of background regarding this series and its purpose. Of course, since October 7th of 2023, the focus of much of the mainstream media, of course, has been on just October 7th, as if the history of the conflict, the history of the ethnic cleansing and the theft of land and the oppression and the violence against Palestinians began on October 7th, 2023. And so as one way to remedy this problem, CSMA, the Center for the Study of the Arab and Muslim Worlds here at CSUSB, has developed this chronological film series, 8-part film series, which is going to begin today with Al Jazeera's October 7th. And then subsequently, we will, through 7 films, be running through the, to paraphrase Rashid Khalidi, the century of war against the Palestinians, beginning with the film 1948, which, of course, I believe many of you are aware of, was done by my colleague, Dr. Ahlam Mutaseb and Andy Trimlett. So that will be our second film, and then we will be moving sequentially, chronologically, through the history, focusing primarily, but not solely, on Gaza, bringing it full circle from today's October 7th, 2023 focus in the Al Jazeera documentary, back by our 8th installment to the present, or to at least the most recent documentary that we have on the genocide currently going on in Gaza. So with that, just a couple of, I guess you could call them liner notes for this live stream regarding this film that we're about to watch, that is Al Jazeera's October 7th documentary. This documentary was, of course, done in the months up to its release in March of 2024. So it was released last March. And so since March, there have been several important developments that bear on the narrative that the documentary provides. And so just briefly, I wanted to talk about those. The documentary discusses the implementation of the Hannibal Directive, that is the order for members of the Israeli military to shoot and kill anything and anyone that was returning to the Gaza Strip in order to eliminate the potential for there to be hostages. So the documentary mentions the Hannibal Directive, but having been done in March, of course, it couldn't include the July 7th, 2024 Haaretz article confirming what the Gray Zone had been reporting for months, and that was the implementation of the Hannibal Directive by Israeli military forces. So this, I will put all of these links, by the way, in the chat after we begin the film. So I will send the link for the Haaretz article on the implementation of the Hannibal directive as well. The numbers of dead in Gaza, the film gives the number 31,000. Of course, that was the estimate in March of 2024. We are now, by the official estimate, over 42,000. There are other considered to be official estimates that are in upwards of 50,000. And the Lancet study, which I will be providing the link for, suggests that the numbers are somewhere upwards now, considering when the study was published, and doing the metrics above 200,000. So I will be providing the link there. And then last, before we run the film, because it bears on a lot of the narrative that this film provides, Sut Jolly and the Gray Zone today have released a new documentary called Atrocity Incorporated: How Israel Sells Its Destruction of Gaza. We will consider whether we can fit that into our film series chronologically as it is structured, but whether we do or not, I will be also providing the link to Sut Jolly and the Gray Zone's new documentary, Atrocity Incorporated. So with that, if my colleagues don't have anything else to add, I believe we're ready to run the film, Al Jazeera's documentary, October 7th. Okay, we're back. I hope everyone can hear me. And I believe my colleagues are still here with us, but I'm going to go ahead and check the QA, and it's open for questions if anyone has any questions about the film that we just watched or any of the links that I and my colleagues have sent out during our screening today. We'll give it a minute or two if people have questions, and if they don't, we hope that you can join us next week for the second installment of the Witnessing Genocide in Palestine film series. Okay, there's a question here. I'm going to read through it really quick, and then we'll see if it's a comment or a question. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read the comment, which also has a question therein, and I can certainly respond. And if my colleagues have anything to add, that would be welcome. This comment, it is frustrating to engage with people regarding this topic. How does one criticize Israel for its heavy-handed and destructive invasion of Gaza without being labeled an anti-Semite? Even pointing out these atrocities and protesting it have falsely labeled people as anti-Semite. It is sad to see how much the Palestinians have been dehumanized since the creation of Israel in 1948. It is strange and frustrating to see how the majority of world and multiple UN organizations recognized Israel's genocide, and yet the US government is unable to stand by the ideals it espouses and condemn Israel's actions. It is frustrating to see how we are represented. I definitely, it's a great question, and this is something that keeps many people from commenting on the genocide that they are witnessing with their own eyes. Unfortunately, this really requires people to be educated about the history of what has happened in Palestine and the history of Zionism. Zionism is modern Jewish nationalism. Judaism is a religion. So we have a millennia-old religion versus modern Jewish nationalism, which is at most, say, 150 years old. This is largely a secular tradition, which is interested in establishing a state, something that ultra-Orthodox Jews, and you can't generalize about all of them, but many ultra-Orthodox do not themselves even recognize because it is willed human activity. So Zionism and Judaism are not synonymous. Judaism is a faith. It is a religious tradition. Zionism is modern Jewish nationalism, which has created a Jewish supremacist apartheid state in Palestine with the support of British colonialists, and then subsequently, since World War II, increasingly the United States of America. So my point is that it's easy for one to to use this label anti-Semitic and try to conflate Zionism and Judaism when they cannot be conflated. They are not the same thing. And so this is something that is used to stifle discussion, to shut down criticism of the state of Israel, to suggest that this is criticism of Jews or Judaism. Nothing could be further from the truth. And many of the most strong advocates of a free Palestine and of the end of the Israeli apartheid state are, of course, Jews who live around the world and here in the United States of America. Jewish Voice for Peace. I sent out a few links from Max Blumenthal, who runs the Gray Zone, with Aaron Mate, another American Jew. So the idea that that one cannot criticize the apartheid state of Israel, which is founded on Zionist ideals, because this would somehow be criticizing Jews or Judaism, is simply incorrect. There's no factual basis behind it. And so hopefully people, once they educate themselves, can be emboldened to talk about the realities of what is going on in Palestine. Did my colleagues have anything to add?
Yeah, can I address part of the question or comment, which is the connection to why the government in the United States is still actually sponsoring and enabling the genocide. And I think that part is very important, because it means we are all complicit, whether we like it or not, because we're talking about our taxpayers' money. And I think for that specific question, knowing that the majority of Americans now know a lot about what is happening, and they are way more educated than ever before about the Palestinian-Israeli so-called conflict. The fact that we also have the military-industrial complex and its impact on policies in the United States, coined or complicated by the power of the Israeli lobby in the United States itself, and they go hand in hand. So unfortunately, in spite of all the protests in the United States, the encampments of the students, in spite of the huge amount of awareness, the US government still insists, and we're not talking about Democrats versus Republicans. They are basically very similar when it comes to the issue of Palestine and Israel. Unfortunately, we are to a great extent, being governed by the rules of the military-industrial complex and all the profits that are generated from wars and miseries. And this applies not only to the Palestinian context. I mean, we could also talk about Ukraine, and same thing, fueling war for the interests of those corporates that are invested in wars and genocide and in crimes against humanity. So I just wanted to point that out, and just to remind everyone to please look at some of the articles that Dr. Yagobian put in the chat, especially in terms of sexual violence and rape against Palestinian prisoners. And now we're talking, so the documentary didn't cover everything, but one of the things that it didn't mention, unfortunately, is the fact that before October 7, of course, we have a whole history of oppression against Palestinians. And one of them is the fact that there were already 4,200 Palestinians abducted, actually, from areas where the Israelis shouldn't even be there. And they were, being treated in horrible conditions. And after October 7, the first thing that Israel did was to go on a rampage of incarcerating Palestinians left and right, including many children as young as 12 years old, being tortured and sexually abused in those detention centers, especially the one in Gaza and for Gazan incarcerated, Palestinians. So please make sure you look at that, especially the case of Hadid al-Dahdouh, but also the case of rape and sexual violence against male prisoners as well in Sidi Nadim prison in Naqab.
Okay, and while we wait to see if there's another question, I just sent out a link to a pretty well-known interview that was done with between Amy Goodman and Knesset Representative Aloni several years ago, probably 15 years ago now, where Knesset Representative Aloni describes how anti-Semitism, the accusation of anti-Semitism, is used to serve political purposes. And so I strongly suggest you listen to that minute and a half portion of the interview between Amy Goodman and Representative Aloni. Okay, well, thank you again, Kenny, for the question and for the follow-ups. If there aren't any other questions, and if my colleagues don't have anything else to add, I think we will call it a screening and look forward to hopefully having had a really great group today. So hopefully everyone can join us for the next 7 installments of the Witnessing Genocide in Palestine film series. And thank you all for being here today.